The rain came without warning. Thick clouds rolled across the colony sky, dark as smoke, and soon the first drops began to fall. Within minutes, the small human farm on the edge of New Eden Valley was drowning in the storm. Wind howled through the cornfields, lightning split the sky, and muddy water ran between the barns like small rivers. Eli Ward, a quiet farmer in his 30s, pulled his coat tighter as he stepped off the porch. He had been fixing the solar pump when the storm hit, but now his only thought was to keep his animals safe. The chickens were restless. He could hear their cries even through the noise of the rain. He hurried toward the coop, boots sinking in mud. The light from his lantern flickered with every gust. When he reached the small wooden building, he noticed the door was slightly open, swaying with the wind. That wasn't right. Eli always locked it at night. He frowned and lifted his lantern higher. "Anyone in there?" he called out, though he expected no answer. Only the storm replied. Still, something made him step inside. The smell of damp straw filled the air. Chickens rustled in their corners, uneasy. Then movement. A shadow passed near the back of the coop. Eli froze. The light caught a glimpse of something crouching. Someone. "Hey!" he shouted, holding the lantern forward. A figure turned toward him. For a moment, the lightning outside flashed and revealed her face. She wasn't human. Her skin had a faint bluish hue. Her eyes large and glowing softly like polished amber. She looked terrified. In her arms was a small child wrapped in a torn silver blanket. "Please," she whispered, her voice trembling. "We just needed shelter from the rain." Eli's first thought was to step back. His mind raced. An alien. Here, on a human farm? That wasn't supposed to happen. The colony had strict laws. Aliens could not cross into human zones without clearance. He could be fined, even jailed for hiding one. But then he saw the child. The little one was shivering, tiny fingers gripping the woman's shoulder. They both looked exhausted, soaked to the bone. Eli lowered his lantern slowly. "You can't stay here," he said, his tone firm but not unkind. "If someone finds you," the woman's eyes filled with tears. "We'll leave when the rain stops," she said softly. "Please, my son is sick. We were running from the patrol drones. I didn't mean to trespass." Outside, thunder cracked again, shaking the walls. Eli looked at the storm through the open door. The night was pitch black, rain falling like sheets of glass. No one could survive out there for long. He sighed heavily. "Fine," he muttered. "But only till the storm ends." The alien mother's shoulders sagged with relief. "Thank you," she whispered. Eli closed the door tightly and hung the lantern on a nail. "There's some dry straw in the corner," he said. "And water in that bucket." "You can stay there." The woman bowed her head. "I am called Sela," she said quietly. "My son's name is Taro." Eli nodded stiffly, pretending not to notice how strange it was to hear alien words in his old chicken coop. He walked back toward the door, but something made him turn around. Sela was trying to warm the child with her cloak, but the boy's lips were pale, his breathing shallow. Eli hesitated. He could walk away, pretend he saw nothing, but that wasn't who he was. With a quiet curse, he went back to the farmhouse. The wind nearly knocked him off balance, but he made it inside, dripping wet. He lit the stove and filled a kettle with water. Then he searched the cupboard for something: soup mix, an old blanket, a small medical kit he'd used last winter. When he returned to the coop, Sela looked up in surprise. "For you," Eli said simply, handing her the blanket. "And some hot soup." Her hands trembled as she took them. "Why?" she asked softly. "Humans don't usually help us." Eli didn't answer right away. He knelt near the boy, checking his forehead. "Because you're cold," he said finally. "That's reason enough." For the next few minutes, the only sound was the storm outside and the soft crackle of Eli's lantern. The chickens had settled down. The warmth of the soup seemed to bring color back to the child's face. Sela watched Eli carefully. "They say humans are cruel," she murmured. "But you're not." He looked away. "Don't judge all humans by me," he said quietly. "And don't make me regret this." Sela smiled faintly. "I won't, you have my word." Eli stood up, brushing the dirt from his knees. "Get some rest. The rain should stop by morning." He stepped outside again, closing the coop door behind him. The rain still poured, but the sound no longer felt lonely. Somewhere behind that door, an alien mother and her child were safe for now. As Eli walked back to his farmhouse, he couldn't shake the feeling that his simple act of kindness had just changed something. Maybe not just for them, but for him too. He didn't know that this night would mark the beginning of a story that would travel far beyond his little farm and across the stars. Morning came slowly with pale sunlight breaking through the heavy clouds. The storm had left the world quiet and shining. Water dripped from the roof. The ground smelled of wet soil and a thin mist hung over the valley. Eli Ward walked out of his farmhouse feeling the ache of a sleepless night. His mind kept returning to the chicken coop, where 2 lives waited depending on his silence. He approached the coop cautiously. The door creaked as he pushed it open. Inside, the air was warmer now. The alien woman Selah sat near the corner, her child still wrapped in the blanket Eli had given. The boy looked better, his breathing steady, a bit of color returning to his cheeks. Selah turned as Eli entered. Her expression was guarded, as if she expected him to tell her to leave. Eli set down a basket of bread and dried fruit. "Breakfast," he said simply. "You shouldn't have helped us," Selah whispered, her amber eyes watching him carefully. "If the humans find out, they won't," Eli interrupted, though his voice was uncertain. He took off his hat, rubbing the back of his neck. "The patrol drones scan the area sometimes. You'll need to stay out of sight, maybe just for a day or 2. Selah nodded slowly. "We will not cause trouble, I promise." Eli studied her for a moment. She was clearly exhausted, her long silver hair tangled from the storm, her clothes torn. Yet there was something strong in her posture, a quiet dignity as if she had endured far worse than a night of rain. "What happened to you?" he asked finally. "Why were you running?" Selah hesitated, glancing at her son before answering. "My world signed a peace treaty with the humans," she said softly. "But some soldiers did not accept it. They started hunting those who worked with your kind. I was a healer in a human clinic. They called me a traitor." Eli frowned. "So you fled?" "Yes," she said. "They burned our transport. My husband didn't make it. I've been hiding since." Eli felt something twist inside him. He wanted to say something kind, but words seemed small against the weight of her story. He just nodded. "You can stay until the boy recovers," he said. "But if anyone comes asking, you were never here." Selah lowered her head in gratitude. "Thank you, Eli Ward," he almost smiled. "Just Eli," he corrected. That afternoon, Eli went into town for supplies. The dirt road was slick from rain, and the settlement looked half drowned, muddy streets, dripping roofs, and people drying their clothes under weak sunlight. At the general store, Eli loaded his basket with feed, flour, and batteries, but he could feel eyes on him. The shopkeeper, an old man named Corman, leaned over the counter. "You got anyone staying at your place, Eli?" he asked casually. Eli looked up sharply. "No, why?" "Drone picked up heat readings near your farm last night," Corman said. "Sheriff thinks maybe vagrants or smugglers." "You didn't see anything?" Eli's heart skipped. He forced a laugh. "Just my chickens. Storm spooked them." Corman grinned. "Well, keep an eye out. Word is some aliens escaped the detention camp last week. Dangerous lot, they say." Eli's jaw tightened. He paid for his supplies quickly and left. The wind had picked up again, and for the first time he felt the full weight of the risk he was taking. If they found Selah and her boy on his land, it wouldn't just mean fines, it could mean imprisonment. By evening, the valley glowed gold under the setting sun. Eli returned home, but before going inside, he stopped at the coop again. Selah stood outside, washing the child's hands with a small cloth. When she saw him, she straightened nervously. "You should be inside," Eli whispered sharply. "Someone could see you." "There is no one around," Selah said gently. "Ann Taro needed fresh air." Eli sighed. He wanted to be angry, but he couldn't. The boy smiled faintly at him, a small, trusting smile that melted his frustration. He knelt beside them. "Listen carefully," he said. "People in town are already talking. Drone saw something near my farm last night. You have to stay hidden until I find a way to move you." Selah's expression grew serious. "We understand. But where would we go? The borders are guarded." "I don't know yet," Eli admitted, "but I'll figure something out." She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes soft. "You're risking your life for us. Why?" Eli shrugged, staring at the ground. "Because someone should. Because no one else will." A silence fell between them, gentle, heavy, and human. The boy tugged on Eli's sleeve. "Thank you," he said in a weak but clear voice. Eli smiled faintly. "You're welcome, kid." As night came, he turned to leave, but Selah's quiet voice stopped him. "Eli," she said, If anything happens, I will protect you. He didn't know how to answer that. He just nodded and walked away, the sound of crickets rising behind him. Above them, the first patrol drone hummed faintly in the sky, its red light sweeping across the fields. Sela pulled her son close and whispered, "Stay quiet, Taro. The world does not forgive kindness." And inside his house, Eli watched the drone from the window, knowing that trust was a fragile thing, and that one wrong choice could break it forever. 3 days had passed since the storm. The fields were green again, but the air around Eli's farm had grown heavy, with silence and unease. Every time he looked at the horizon, he half expected patrol vehicles to appear. Every time the wind rattled the barn doors, his hand moved toward his old rifle, more out of fear than anger. Sela and her son had stayed hidden inside the coop. Eli had given them a few supplies, though he was careful not to leave too many tracks leading there. Still, he knew it couldn't last forever. The colony wasn't a kind place for secrets. That morning, Eli drove into town again for feed. The sky was pale blue, the air crisp and calm, but his chest felt tight. He parked near the general store, noticing a small group of townsfolk gathered outside. They were talking quietly, their faces tense. When Eli approached, the conversation stopped. A heavy man in a brown coat, Deputy Rourke, gave him a nod. "Morning, Ward," he said. "You hear the news?" Eli forced a neutral smile. "No." "What news?" Rourke lowered his voice. "2 aliens were spotted near the East Ridge 2 nights ago. Patrols are sweeping the area. Some say they came through the storm, maybe escaped from the camps." Eli pretended to frown. "That far north? That's close to my place." "Exactly," Rourke said, narrowing his eyes. "You didn't see anything unusual? Drones caught strange heat patterns around your property during the rain." Eli's pulse quickened, but he kept his voice steady. "Just the livestock. The coop's heat lamps were on all night." Rourke studied him for a moment, then shrugged. "Could be. Just keep an eye out, Eli. You're a good man. Don't get yourself mixed up in any alien mess." Eli nodded, forcing a chuckle. "I'll keep my eyes open." He finished his shopping as quickly as he could, but whispers followed him wherever he went. Someone mentioned a blue-skinned woman seen near the forest. Another claimed their barn had been broken into. The tension in town was sharp as barbed wire. When he drove home, the silence of the valley felt different, like the calm before a second storm. That night, as the last light faded, Eli carried a lantern to the coop. Sela was awake, kneeling beside her sleeping son. When she saw him, she smiled faintly. "You look troubled," she said quietly. "I am," Eli admitted. "They're searching for you. The patrols are moving closer. They think escaped refugees are hiding nearby." Sela's expression darkened. "We can leave tonight," she whispered. "I'll carry Taro through the fields. We'll find another place." Eli shook his head. "No, the drones fly low after dark. You'd be caught before you made it half a mile." "Then what should we do?" she asked. Eli didn't have an answer. He looked at the child, small and peaceful under the blanket. "He's getting better," he said softly. "That's something." Sela's voice trembled. "You shouldn't risk this, Eli. I can feel your fear." "Humans fear losing what they love." Eli gave a short, tired laugh. "I don't have much to lose." But even as he said it, he thought of his land, his quiet life, and how one act of mercy had already placed everything in danger. The next morning, Rourke's hover truck rolled up to Eli's gate. The deputy stepped out, dust puffing from his boots. "Morning again," Rourke said, smiling too easily. "Mind if I take a quick look around?" Eli's throat went dry. "What for?" "Standard sweep," Rourke said, tapping a tablet. "Got to scan the barns and outbuildings. Drones can't see through old metal roofs, won't take long." Eli forced a calm tone. "Fine, but I've got work to do, so make it quick." As Rourke moved toward the barn, Eli's mind raced. Sela and Taro were still in the coop. If Rourke went that way, it was over. Thinking fast, Eli called out, "You might want to start with the east shed. Had some raccoons get in there last night." The deputy grumbled but turned away, scanning the other direction. Eli stood still, pretending to fix a broken fence post, heart hammering as the scanner beeped and buzzed behind him. Minutes felt like hours. Finally, Rourke walked back. "All clear," he said. "Though you might want to check that chicken coop later. Heat readings are a bit odd. Probably your lamp again." Eli forced a nod. "Yeah, I'll check it." When the truck finally rolled away, Eli let out a long breath. His hands were shaking. He hurried to the coop. Sela met him at the door, eyes wide. "We heard voices," she whispered. "They almost found you," Eli said, his tone sharp from fear. "You can't make noise, you can't move around during the day, understand?" Sela nodded, trembling. "I understand." Eli turned to leave but stopped at the door. "This won't last," he said quietly. "They'll come back. They always do." Sela's gaze softened. "Then we'll face it together." He looked at her, at the alien woman crouched among his chickens, clutching her son, and felt something shift inside him again. He wasn't sure if it was courage or despair. Outside, the deputy's hover truck disappeared over the hill, its red lights fading in the distance. But in the dirt near the coop, a small black object blinked twice. A surveillance sensor, dropped accidentally from Rourke's scanner. Hidden beneath the straw, its tiny red light began to pulse. The real danger had just begun. By the next evening, a strange tension filled the air around Eli Ward's farm. The rain had long stopped, but the sky still carried a gray weight, thick clouds hanging low, as if the world was holding its breath. Eli could feel it too. Something was wrong. The chickens were restless again, clucking nervously at every sound. The dog barked toward the hills as if warning him of something unseen. And then, just before dusk, he noticed it, a small, blinking red light half buried near the coop's fence. He knelt down slowly, brushing off the dirt. It was a surveillance sensor, one of the new types the patrols used, the kind that transmitted heat and sound directly to the sheriff's station. Eli's pulse quickened. "Damn it," he muttered. He knew right away what it meant. The patrols hadn't finished their search. They were still watching. He pocketed the sensor and hurried into the coop. Sela was feeding her son a bit of bread when she looked up and saw his face. "What happened?" she asked. "They left something behind," Eli said, setting the small device on a wooden crate. "A tracker. It's been recording you." Sela's eyes widened, fear flashing through them. "Then they know we are here." "Not yet," Eli said quickly. "If it's still transmitting, they might think it's just chickens or machinery. But if they decide to check the readings again—" He stopped himself, not wanting to finish the thought. He turned toward her. "You and the boy have to move." "Tonight." Sela stood, clutching her son protectively. "But where can we go? The forest is filled with patrol drones." Eli's mind raced. He thought of the old irrigation tunnel behind the cornfield, a narrow concrete pipe from the colony's first days. It led half a mile toward the river. No one used it anymore. "You can hide there," he said, "at least until I can distract them." She stared at him in disbelief. "You would do that for us?" Eli nodded, forcing a small, grim smile. "I've come too far to stop now." Hours later, as the sun sank below the horizon, the low hum of engines echoed across the valley. Eli froze. From the ridge, 3 patrol vehicles descended, their spotlights cutting through the mist like knives. "They're here," he whispered. Sela pulled her son close, eyes wide with fear. "Go," Eli urged. "Take the tunnel path behind the field. Stay quiet. Don't stop." "What about you?" "I'll buy you time." Before she could argue, he grabbed a heavy coat, stepped out into the open and started toward the main gate, pretending to be surprised by the arriving patrol. The first vehicle stopped near the barn. Deputy Rourke climbed out, flanked by 2 soldiers in gray armor. "Evening, Ward," Rourke said, his voice cold. "We need to take another look around. The sensor we left picked up strange readings last night. Too consistent to be chickens." Eli feigned confusion. "Strange readings? I told you already, I use heat lamps. Maybe they glitched." One of the soldiers stepped forward. We'll see about that. Rourke's eyes narrowed. Start with the Coop. Eli's stomach turned. What for? They're just chickens. Orders, Rourke snapped. Eli moved quickly, trying to walk ahead of them. Fine, but let me unlock it first. The latch sticks sometimes. He reached the Coop door, hand trembling slightly on the bolt. He could hear faint movement inside, the soft scrape of straw. Open it, Rourke ordered. Eli pulled the latch, pushing the door slowly open. The lantern light spilled across the floor. Chickens squawked and fluttered, but the far corner was empty. Sela and Taro were gone. Eli's breath caught in relief, but he didn't show it. The soldiers scanned the room, devices clicking softly. No aliens, one muttered. But the temperature here is higher than normal. Eli shrugged. That's the heat lamp I told you about. Rourke frowned, stepping closer to the crate. His boot knocked against something. The small transmitter Eli had left earlier. The deputy picked it up. This yours? Eli's heart jumped. Yeah, I found it near the fence. Thought it was broken. Rourke studied him, suspicion clouding his face. You should have reported it. I was going to, Eli lied quickly. Didn't think it mattered. For a long moment, no one spoke. The storm wind hissed through the cracks, whistling like a warning. Finally, Rourke pocketed the device. If you're hiding anyone, Ward, you'll regret it. You know the penalties. Eli held his ground. I'm hiding nothing but wet chickens. Rourke gave him one last hard look before signaling his men. We'll be back tomorrow. Keep this place clean. When the patrol vehicles finally pulled away, their lights fading into the night, Eli collapsed against the doorframe, his breath shaking. He waited a few minutes before heading behind the fields. The moonlight glowed faintly over the crops, turning the wet soil silver. Near the old tunnel, he found Sela and her son waiting in the shadows. They're gone, he said softly. You're safe, for now. Sela looked at him, her eyes shimmering in the dark. You risked everything. Eli shook his head. You'd have done the same, she smiled faintly. Maybe, but not everyone would. Eli looked back toward the faint lights of the town. They'll come again, he said quietly. Next time it'll be harder to hide. Sela tightened her grip on Taro. Then we must trust fate. And you. He met her gaze, the human and alien staring across a fragile line that no longer mattered. For the first time, Eli realized something powerful had changed. Not just his farm, not just his quiet life, but his heart, and far above them, hidden in the clouds, a patrol drone hovered silently, recording everything. The morning after the raid was quiet, too quiet. The valley usually woke with the sound of birds and the hum of machines, but now it felt like the world was holding its breath. Eli Ward sat on his porch, his hands wrapped around a cup of cold coffee, staring out at the mist rising from his fields. He hadn't slept. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw the flashing patrol lights, the soldiers' boots crunching over the mud, the look on Rourke's face. They had been close, too close. If the deputy had searched 1 minute longer, he would have found the tunnel. And now Eli knew the search wasn't over. He heard a soft rustle behind him and turned. Sela stood at the edge of the porch, her son beside her. She looked tired but calm, her silver hair tied back with a torn ribbon. The boy, Taro, clung to her hand, watching Eli silently. You shouldn't be out here, Eli said quietly. Someone might see you. There's no one, Sela replied. The road is empty. The soldiers went south. For now, Eli muttered. He rubbed his forehead. They'll come back. Rourke doesn't let go once he smells something. Sela stepped closer. Then we will leave tonight. The tunnel leads to the forest, yes? We can follow the river. Eli looked up at her. You won't make it far. The drones sweep that route every night. You'll be caught before sunrise. She crossed her arms, her voice trembling. What choice do we have? We cannot stay here forever. You've done enough for us, Eli Ward. Eli stood, his jaw tightening. Don't say that. I'm not sending you out there to die. Sela's amber eyes searched his face. You will lose everything if you keep us here. Your farm, your home, your freedom. I know, he said, his voice breaking. But I can't just hand you over either. For a long time they stood there, the wind tugging at their clothes. Somewhere in the distance thunder rolled again, though the sky remained dry. That afternoon Eli drove into town for one reason, Information. The streets were tense, soldiers everywhere. Posters fluttered on walls showing grainy images of alien refugees. Wanted for trespass and theft. The faces were blurred, but one looked hauntingly familiar. Inside the store, Corman lowered his voice when he saw Eli. "You hear? They're expanding the search zone. Sheriff's team is planning a full scan of the valley by tomorrow night." Eli froze. "The whole valley?" "Every farm, every shed," Corman said. "They're bringing in heat drones this time. If someone's hiding anything, human or alien, they'll find it." Eli paid quickly and left without a word. On the drive home, the weight of the decision pressed harder on his chest. If he told Sela to leave, she and her son would be captured, or worse. If he kept them hidden, he would lose everything he'd built. He stopped the truck halfway up the dirt road, gripping the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. "What am I doing?" he whispered to himself. "She's not even human. Why risk it all?" But deep inside, he already knew the answer. She was a mother. And the boy, despite his strange eyes, laughed like any human child. They weren't enemies, they were just trying to survive. When he returned to the farm, Sela was waiting near the barn. "You found something," she said quietly. Eli nodded. "They're scanning the valley tomorrow night. You have one chance to escape before then." Sela's face fell. "But you said the forest is dangerous." "It is," Eli said, "but I know a better way." He unfolded an old map on the barn table. "There's a dry riverbed that leads to the old mining shafts near the ridge. It's abandoned. No patrols go there anymore. You can follow it west until you reach the hills. After that, you'll be safe." Sela touched the map gently, tracing the path with her fingers. "And you?" Eli hesitated. "I'll tell them I found nothing. If they ask, I'll say the heat signals were from broken equipment." "You'll lie for us again," she said softly. "I'll do what I have to." Sela looked at him, her voice trembling. "Why do you care so much?" Eli's eyes met hers. "Because once when I was a boy, a stranger saved me from freezing during a storm. Didn't ask who I was or where I came from. Just helped. I guess I'm just returning the favor, years late." For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Then Sela reached out and took his hand. Her touch was warm, her skin faintly glowing in the dim light. "You are different from the others," she said. "You're kind. Maybe there is hope for us after all." Eli swallowed hard, pulling his hand back gently. "Go before I change my mind." That night, under a moon half hidden by clouds, Sela and Taro prepared to leave. Eli handed them a pack with food, a small light, and a radio beacon. "When you reach the ridge, send a signal," he said. "I'll know you made it." Sela looked at him, her eyes glistening. "And if we don't?" Eli forced a smile. "Then I'll come looking." As they disappeared into the fields, the night swallowed their shapes, mother and child, walking into the unknown. Eli watched until he couldn't see them anymore. Then he turned back toward the farmhouse, his heart heavy. The next morning, when the patrols arrived again, Eli stood tall before them. Rourke stepped forward. "We're scanning your property again, Ward." Eli met his gaze, steady and unflinching. "Do what you have to." But deep inside, he knew his choice was already made. He had chosen mercy over law, humanity over fear. And somewhere out there, in the dark hills beyond the valley, a mother and her child were free, because one human had chosen to believe in something bigger than survival. The following night arrived heavy with tension. The valley lay under a cold silver moon, the air thick and still, as if the world itself was waiting for something terrible to happen. Eli Ward sat by the window, his rifle leaning against the wall, his lantern burning low. Every sound made his heart jump. The creak of wood, the chirp of insects, the distant rumble of engines. He hadn't seen Sela or Taro since they slipped away through the fields. He prayed they had reached the ridge safely, but deep down he feared the worst. The patrols were faster, better equipped, and ruthless. Then, at midnight, the silence shattered. Engines roared down the dirt road, headlights slicing through the mist. Drones hovered above the farm, their red lights flashing like angry eyes. The ground shook as armored boots hit the mud. Eli stood, his pulse racing. "So it begins," he muttered. The door burst open. Deputy Rourke stepped inside, followed by 3 armed soldiers. "Evening again, Ward," Rourke said coldly. "We're finishing what we started. The sheriff authorized a full scan of your property." Eli tried to sound calm. "I told you before, there's nothing here but chickens and tools." Rourke smirked. Then you won't mind if we check every inch. He motioned to the soldiers. Search everything. Barn, house, fields, the coop, especially the coop. Eli's stomach twisted. He clenched his fists but nodded. Go ahead. As the soldiers spread out, the sound of metal detectors and scanning beams filled the air. One soldier approached the coop holding a heat scanner. Eli's breath caught. Wait, he said quickly. Don't scare the hens, they'll stop laying again. The soldier ignored him, stepping inside the coop. His device beeped softly, picking up faint traces of warmth. He frowned. There's residual heat here. 2 life forms, one small, one adult. Rourke turned sharply. Where? Eli's blood ran cold. They didn't make it far, he thought. They must have come back. He stepped forward, blocking Rourke's path. That's from last week's readings. The lamp's faulty, it overheats. But Rourke's patience was gone. Step aside, Eli stood firm. You have no warrant. Rourke's eyes hardened. This is wartime law, Ward, I don't need one. He pushed past Eli and marched into the coop. The beam of his flashlight swept across the straw, the walls, the wooden floor, then stopped. There, near the back, lay the broken panel leading down into the tunnel. Rourke crouched, brushing away hay. What's this? Eli's voice cracked. Old drainage line. Sealed years ago. Sealed? Rourke pulled at the wood. It came loose with a creak, revealing the dark tunnel beneath. The air smelled of earth and damp air. He turned to Eli, face like stone. Looks open to me. Eli's mind raced. If they went down there, they'd find the footprints, the scraps of cloth, the truth. Before Rourke could give the order, Eli grabbed the lantern from the wall and swung it toward the tunnel entrance. It shattered on the wood, flames bursting instantly as oil spilled. The soldiers jumped back, shouting, Fire! Get back! One yelled. The coop filled with smoke. Eli shoved Rourke aside and pulled open the door, letting the chickens scatter into the storm of sparks and feathers. It's catching! He yelled. The soldiers dragged hoses from the truck, spraying foam, shouting orders. Rourke coughed, his face red with fury. What have you done, Ward? Accident, Eli gasped. Old lantern fell. I warned you the floorboards were weak. The blaze quickly spread across the straw, lighting the night in orange and gold. Within minutes, half the coop had collapsed, the tunnel entrance buried beneath burning debris. When the fire finally died, only smoke and ash remained. Rourke stared at the ruin, breathing hard. We'll search again tomorrow, he growled. If you're lying, I'll make sure you regret it. Eli met his gaze steadily. You've already taken enough from this land. There's nothing left to find. Rourke glared, then signaled the soldiers to pull back. The drones lifted, their red lights vanishing into the sky. When the last engine faded, Eli stood alone beside the smoking ruins of the coop. His throat burned from the smoke, his hands blistered, but he didn't care. He knelt in the mud, searching the shadows near the old fence. And there it was. A small mark scratched into the post. 2 curved lines crossing like wings. Sella's symbol, a silent message. We made it. Eli smiled weakly, tears stinging his eyes. Good, he whispered. Good. He looked up at the stars breaking through the clouds, their faint light touching the burnt earth around him. He knew the patrols would return, maybe with more men and bigger machines. He might lose the farm. He might lose everything. But somewhere beyond those hills, an alien mother and her child were alive because he'd chosen fire over betrayal, mercy over obedience. He turned back toward his house, limping through the smoke. His world was smaller now, but his heart felt larger than it ever had before. Above him, the wind carried the last whisper of Sella's voice from the night they met. We just needed shelter from the rain. And Eli realized that sometimes, saving one life meant setting your own world on fire. The night had burned itself away. By morning, smoke still curled from the blackened skeleton of Eli Ward's chicken coop. The air smelled of ash and rain-soaked dirt. The sky above New Eden Valley was pale and bruised, streaked with the colors of a new day that didn't feel like one. Eli stood alone beside the ruins. His hands were bandaged, his clothes streaked with soot. The fire had taken almost everything, the coop, the tools, even part of the fence, but he didn't care. What mattered had already escaped beyond the hills. He crouched beside the fence post again, tracing the small mark Sella had left, the double curve that looked like wings. It was carved deep this time, as if to last forever. They made it. he whispered to himself, voice hoarse. They really made it. For a long while, he just stood there listening to the quiet. No engines, no drones, no soldiers, only the wind brushing through the fields. The storm had passed, and so had the danger for now, but peace didn't feel like victory. It felt like silence after shouting, a stillness full of memories that refused to fade. By midday, the patrol trucks returned. Deputy Rourke climbed out, boots crunching on wet earth. His uniform was clean, his expression harder than before. Hell of a mess, Ward, he said, staring at the burned Coop. Looks like you'll be rebuilding for months. Eli said nothing. Rourke walked around the ruins, scanning the ground. Fire reports say it started near the floor. You got any idea how that happened? Eli met his eyes, calm and steady. You were there, Deputy. You saw the lantern fall. Rourke studied him for a long moment, then smirked. Convenient, isn't it? Everything burned. No proof, no tunnel, no evidence. Guess the fire did your job for you, Eli said quietly. Rourke's smile faded. If I find out you've been lying, if I find any trace of them, you'll hang, Ward. Don't think your little act of kindness makes you a hero. You help one of them and 10 more come crawling out of the dirt. Eli didn't flinch. Maybe they wouldn't have to crawl if we stopped pushing them down there. The deputy's jaw tightened. He turned away, barking orders to his men. Wrap it up. Nothing left here. As the trucks rolled away again, Eli finally exhaled. He felt the fear leave him slowly, replaced by a quiet exhaustion that went deeper than his bones. That evening, as the sun dipped low over the valley, Eli walked to the edge of his land where the fields met the forest. He carried a small box in his hand, one of the few things he'd saved from the fire. Inside was the broken piece of metal from the surveillance sensor, its red light long dead. He buried it beneath the fence post where Sela had carved her mark. No more eyes, he murmured. No more watchers. When he straightened, a glint of light caught his eye. Something was fluttering in the wind, small, metallic, half-buried near the road. He walked closer and picked it up. It was a thin silver disc about the size of his palm, engraved with alien script, and on the back, etched carefully, were 3 words in English. For the shelter. Eli's throat tightened. He turned the disc over in his hands, feeling the weight of it. Not metal, but meaning. Proof that they'd survived. Proof that his choice hadn't been in vain. He slipped it into his pocket, his heart aching with both pride and sorrow. Years passed. The war cooled, treaties held, and the borders opened slowly. Humans and aliens began to rebuild what the storms of hatred had broken. Eli grew older. His farm recovered. But he never rebuilt the Coop. He left that patch of earth untouched, overgrown with wildflowers. He said it was to let the soil heal, though deep down he knew it was more than that. One quiet morning, the mail drone landed on his porch. Inside its compartment was a sealed envelope printed with the emblem of the Interstellar Refugee Council. Eli frowned, opening it carefully. Inside was a letter written in graceful script. To Eli Ward, years ago, during a storm, you gave shelter to 2 lives when the world refused them. Because of you, a child survived and grew. His name is Taro Salan, and he now serves as an envoy for the Human-Alien Alliance. I am still a healer, still a mother, and I have not forgotten the man who gave us warmth when all doors were closed. Dr. Sela Salan, Council of Unity. A second item fell from the envelope, a photograph. In it stood Sela, older now but radiant, beside a grown boy wearing a council uniform. Behind them, carved into the metal platform of the new capital city, were words in both languages. Kindness is the bridge between stars. Eli smiled faintly, tears filling his eyes. He leaned back in his chair, holding the photo gently. Outside, the wind rustled through the grass, carrying the faint scent of rain. He looked toward the horizon where the fields met the sky. You're welcome, he whispered. And somewhere far away, in a city of shining towers beneath alien suns, a mother and son looked up at the same sky, remembering the human farmer who once opened a door during a storm. Because of him, peace had a chance to bloom. Because of him, one act of mercy had changed the course of 2 worlds. And in the quiet heart of New Eden Valley, the burned Coop remained untouched. A monument to the night an alien mother said softly, "We just needed shelter from the rain."